Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We have a stack of material on the desk today that is, frankly, it's going to make you look at your own hands a little differently by the end of the hour.
That's a good way to put it.
We're dissecting a text that somehow links a truly bizarre dinner party in Manhattan to the Council of Nicea, of all things.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. It then drags those concepts right into modern signaling theory and really the mechanics of risk.
It is a wild ride.
It really is. We're essentially asking a single, and I think a kind of terrifying question. How do you know what's real? And the answer the source material provides isn't about what you see or what you can touch or even what you hear. It's about what you can lose.
Okay, so the source we're pulling from is Chapter 5, Life in the Simulation Machine. And it opens with a scene that, I mean, it feels like it was written for a movie.
It's incredibly cinematic.
It's a dinner party. New York City. A literary club. I really want you to picture the room here. You know, dark wood paneling, maybe the smell of old paper and an expensive cologne, the clink of heavy silverware.
It's a very, very specific atmosphere. The host is a physicist, Edgar C., but the guests are really the key to the whole setup.
Really are.
The text describes them as the type of people who look like they read Borges and Proust. You know the type.
Oh, I know exactly that look.
Right.
It's the intellectual heavyweight starter pack.
Right, exactly. We're talking corduroy jackets, maybe a velvet ascot here and there.
Suede shoes for sure.
Suede shoes, business suits. They are projecting an image. The image is one of deep philosophical thought. They are dressed to signal that they live the life of the mind.
And then, you know, in the middle of this sea of suede and corduroy, there's this guy. His name's David. And David he does not fit in.
Not at all.
He's not wearing the uniform. He's sitting across from the author. And he just looks, I don't know, normal, maybe a little too intense, but he's not playing that literary genius game that everyone else is.
He's the outlier, the glitch in the aesthetic matrix of the room.
So the dinner is moving along. People are probably discussing, you know, postmodernism or the nuances of French literature. And then just completely out of nowhere, David pulls out an ice pick.
And not a prop, let's be clear. This is a legit industrial-looking ice pick.
A real one. And right there at the dinner table, I mean, right between the wine and the bread rolls, he drives this ice pick straight through his own hand.
I mean, can you just pause the scene right there? Imagine the reaction in that room.
I can't.
You have a room full of people who deal in theories, in abstract art, in polite discourse. Their entire world is words and ideas. And suddenly, there is this intrusion of just visceral, violent, physical reality.
The sound must have been awful.
The cognitive dissonance must have been deafening. They just wouldn't know how to process it.
And the author, at this point, he didn't know who David was. He didn't know the host was some kind of amateur magic enthusiast. It's just a random, terrifying act. But then the reveal drops.
The guest is David Blaine.
The world-famous magician.
But this is where the source material pivots, and it pivots hard. Because the author admits that up until that very moment, he always thought magic was just, well, engineering.
Meaning what exactly? Like gadgets and contraptions?
Meaning he thought it was what he calls an inverse problem. He assumed that magicians start with a result, say, make it look like the pick went through the hand, and then they just work backward from there.
Right, they reverse engineer an illusion that mimics that result.
Exactly. Smoke, mirrors, retractable blades, hidden sheaths. He assumed it was fundamentally a simulation of danger, not actual danger.
Which is a totally fair assumption. I mean, that is literally what 99% of magic is. It's a trick. It's deception.
It is. But that's not the end of the story. Later that night, the author sees David standing by the coat check. The performance is over, the guests are leaving, everything's winding down, and David is just standing there with a handkerchief.
And he's sopping up blood.
Actual biological blood from a real wound.
That is the moment where the author's brain just breaks a little bit. Because if there is blood, it wasn't a trick. Or at least it wasn't the kind of trick he thought it was. It wasn't an illusion.
Precisely. The trick, if you even want to call it that, wasn't that he made it look like the ice pick went through his hand. The trick was that he had trained his body and his mind to a point where he could actually put an ice pick through his hand without screaming or causing permanent nerve damage.
So wait, the realization is, this guy isn't simulating reality. He's hacking reality. He's engaging with it.
He is engaging with reality in the most direct and painful way possible. He has skin in the game. Literally, his skin is in the game. And the author writes that in that moment, Blaine transformed in his eyes. He stopped being a performer, which in the author's framework is a kind of low-status role.
Right, just an entertainer.
And he became a real person.
Because he bled.
because he took a real risk. And this single idea, this distinction, sets up the entire definition of reality that we're going to explore for the next hour. The author argues that there's a fundamental difference between a ghost and a human.
Okay, a ghost and a human.
A ghost is someone who simulates. A ghost is the person who wears the ascot and talks about the risks of war or the fluctuations of the economy, but never, ever actually feels the consequences themselves.
They're insulated.
Completely. A human, on the other hand, bleeds.
So the corduroy jacket guys at the dinner party.
Yeah.
In this scenario, they are the ghosts.
In the author's view, absolutely yes. They are styling themselves as relevant as thinkers, but they're completely protected. If their theories about Proust are wrong, what happens?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. If they have a bad opinion on the economy, they still get paid, they still go to the next dinner party. But if David Blaine messes up the angle of that ice pick by just 2 millimeters...
Oh, he hits a nerve. He could lose function in his hand for good. Infection, sepsis, real-world consequences.
Consequences. Irreversible consequences. And this is cemented for the author later on. He mentions meeting Blaine months after the party. He goes to shake his hand, and what does he see on the back of it?
The scar.
The scar.
The receipt.
The proof of purchase. I love that. The scar is the physical, undeniable evidence that the risk was taken. It's the dividing line that separates the storytellers from the practitioners.
It's just so interesting because we usually think of magic as the ultimate art of deception. But in this specific case, the magician was actually the most honest man in the entire room.
That's the beautiful irony of it. The guys in the suits were performing an identity. They were playing a role. The guy doing the magic trick was the only one dealing with cold, hard physics and biology and pain.
Okay, so we've established this baseline for our whole discussion. Reality equals risk. Reality equals the potential for actual physical harm. If you can't get hurt, if you can't lose, you aren't really there.
Right, that's the foundation.
Now, the author takes this concept, the ice pick, the blood, the scar, and he applies it to something that feels totally, completely unrelated. He applies it to the Council of Nicea and the doctrine of the Holy Trinity.
It feels like a stretch, doesn't it, when you first read it?
It feels like a massive stretch. We're going from a dinner party in New York to 4th century Christian theology. How do you connect those two?
But you have to follow the logic because he claims that the ice pick story, that moment of seeing the blood, is what finally solved the mystery of the Trinity for him.
Okay, so for those of us who, maybe haven't brushed up on our early church history lately, let's set the stage. What was the central mystery here?
The mystery, the thing that was tearing the Christian world apart for centuries, was the nature of Jesus. Is he God? Is he man? Is he some kind of mix? Is he a hologram sent from God? You had these, as the author calls them, bickering bishops at councils like Nicea and Chalcedon.
The bickering bishops. I love that phrasing. It sounds like something out of a Monty Python sketch. But these were deadly, serious, high-stakes political events?
Incredibly high stakes. People were exiled, tortured, and killed over these definitions. The debate was about the very nature of their salvation. Was Jesus God? Was he a man? Was he 50-50? Was he a divine being inhabiting a human shell?
And the source makes a really interesting point that other major religions managed to avoid this entire edict.
They did, and it made things much simpler for them, theologically speaking. You look at Judaism or Islam, they are much cleaner in this regard. Abraham, Moses, Muhammad. They are men.
Prophets.
They're prophets. They are the best of men. They are messengers chosen by the divine, but they are not the divine. They are distinct from the Creator.
So God stays in heaven, the prophet is on earth, and there's a very clear line of command. It's a clean org chart.
It's logical. It makes sense. But Christianity insisted on this messy, complicated, seemingly paradoxical duality. Jesus is fully God and fully man. And the author asks the crucial question, why? Why insist on a narrative that is so difficult to explain and defend?
And the answer somehow goes back to David Blaine's hand.
It does. Think about it through the lens of risk. If God is purely God, omnipotent, omniscient, immortal, existing outside of time and space, can he have skin in the game?
Well, no. By definition, if you're all-powerful, nothing can hurt you. There's no risk.
Exactly. And if there's no risk, can an immortal being truly be brave?
I guess not. Bravery requires fear,
right?
Or at least the possibility of losing something important. If you know you're going to be totally fine no matter what, it's not bravery, it's just physics. You're just going through the motions.
Can an all-powerful being make a genuine sacrifice?
Not really. I mean, if you could just snap your fingers and replace whatever you gave up, it's not a sacrifice. It's a temporary loan to yourself.
So a god stripped of all humanity, a purely divine being, is like a magician doing a card trick with a stacked deck. It might look impressive to the ants on the ground, but for the magician, there is no stake. There is no risk.
It's a simulation of sacrifice.
It is a simulation. The author argues that for the central event of Christianity, the crucifixion, to have any weight, for the story to actually resonate with human beings on a deep level, the protagonist had to be capable of suffering. He had to be capable of feeling pain. He had to be capable of actually dying.
So the duality isn't just some mystical confusion they couldn't figure out. It's actually a narrative necessity for the whole story to work.
It's an existential necessity. The source says, and this is a key line, a god who didn't really suffer on the cross would be like a magician who performed an illusion, not someone who actually bled. It would have been a cheap trick.
Wow. So the church fathers, effectively, whether they use these words or not, were arguing that God had to have skin in the game.
They understood the mechanism of credibility, even if they didn't frame it in those modern terms. You cannot trust a leader, not a general, not a CEO, not even a divine leader, who sits safely in a fortress while you are ordered to die in the trenches.
Right.
By becoming human, by bleeding, by dying, the divine enters the trenches with humanity. It shares the risk.
This leads us to that other term you mentioned in the prep notes, a concept called theosis.
Yes, this is a concept that's particularly strong in the Eastern Orthodox tradition. The author quotes Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria, who said something profound. Jesus Christ was incarnate so we could be made God.
So we could be made God. I mean, that sounds incredibly arrogant if you just take it at face value.
It does, but it's not about arrogance. It's about the direction of flow. The author explains that in the Western Church, we often think of religion as a top-down process. God comes down to save us. It's a rescue mission.
Okay, I can see that.
But the Orthodox view of theosis implies an upward flow as well. It's not just a rescue, it's an elevation.
An upward flow. What does that mean?
It means that humanity moves toward the divine. We are drawn upward. But here is the critical catch. We can only move toward the divine because the divine first moved toward us through the mechanism of risk.
So the human nature of Christ, the part that could get hurt, that's the bridge.
That is the bridge. It's the only thing that connects our reality, which is fundamentally defined by suffering and mortality, to the divine reality. The human part, the part that could bleed, the part that felt the nails, is the anchor point in our world. Without that skin in the game, there is no bridge.
There's just a God watching a movie of our lives.
Watching a simulation, there's no real connection.
This is fascinating because it totally reframes theology. It takes it out of the realm of, magic spells and ancient rules and puts it squarely into the realm of shared risk and vulnerability. It essentially says you cannot have a meaningful relationship with someone who is totally immune to your reality.
That is the core takeaway for this section. Any real relationship requires some form of shared vulnerability. If I am perfectly safe and you are in constant peril, we are not in a relationship. I'm a spectator and you're a gladiator.
Which brings us perfectly to the guy who tried to turn religion into the ultimate safe bet. The man who tried to game the entire system.
Blaise Pascal.
Pascal's wager. This is where the author really sharpens the knife and goes after a classic philosophical argument.
He really is.
I feel like almost everyone learns Pascal's wager in Philosophy 101, and everyone kind of nods along and says, yeah, okay, that makes a certain kind of cold sense, but let's break it down for anyone who isn't familiar.
The wager is essentially an application of probability theory and game theory to the existence of God. Pascal argues that you should believe in God not because you have definitive proof, but because it is the optimal betting strategy for your eternal soul.
It's the free option argument, right?
That's a perfect way to describe it. Look at the matrix he lays out. If you believe in God and he exists, you win everything. Infinite upside, heaven, bliss, eternity, the ultimate jackpot.
Okay, makes sense.
If you believe in God and he doesn't exist, what have you really lost? Maybe some Sunday mornings you could have slept in. Maybe you didn't party as hard as you could have. The cost, he argues, is finite and relatively small.
So, infinite gain on one side versus a small, finite loss on the other.
Exactly. Now let's look at the other side of the bet. If you don't believe and it turns out he does exist, well, that's infinite loss. Hell. Damnation. The worst possible outcome.
So, mathematically, when you look at that payoff matrix, the only rational move is to place the bet on belief. even if you're just faking it till you make it.
It sounds perfect on paper. It sounds like a hedge fund manager structuring an asymmetrical trade. I'll take the upside call option with a very limited downside.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Why is this so bad? If I buy fire insurance for my house, I'm technically betting my house will burn down. I hope it doesn't. But if it doesn't, I just lose the premium I paid. If it does, I'm protected. I get a new house. I'm hedging my risk. Why can't I have hell insurance?
That is exactly the pushback the author anticipates and, frankly, welcomes, and his answer is brutal. Because religion is not a contract, it's a commitment.
Explain the difference in this context.
Insurance is a financial transaction. It's totally sterile. You pay the money, you get the policy. The insurance company doesn't care if you believe in the fire, they just care that you paid the premium. But the author argues that faith, by its very definition, requires a specific type of complex personal risk-taking that Pascal's model completely ignores.
So you can't just trick God with a spreadsheet.
I mean, there's probably that too. But structurally, the author's point is that the belief Pascal describes is a sterile belief.
Yeah.
It's belief without cost. It has no skin in the game. If you are only believing because it's the safest option on a decision tree, you aren't actually believing in anything meaningful. You are posturing.
You're just another one of the guys in the corduroy jacket talking about Proust but never actually writing a book.
Exactly. You are a ghost. You are simulating faith. And if we connect this back to the previous section, if the founding act of the entire religion was the creator accepting maximum risk, the risk of death, then a follower trying to join that religion with zero risk is a complete contradiction in terms.
So you can't buy into a risk-based salvation story with a risk-free wager.
Precisely. The currency doesn't match. The author says that belief without personal risk is just talk. It's cheap talk. Real belief, the kind that matters, requires that you hold a position that could actually cost you something tangible.
It could cost you your reputation among your peers. It could cost you your comfort. It could, in some parts of the world, cost you your life.
And if you aren't willing to pay that potential cost, you aren't a believer. You're just a gambler looking for a free lunch. And if there's one thing the author hates, it's the idea of free lunch.
He really does. So this idea of sterility versus reality seems to be the engine driving this whole chapter. Pascal's wager is sterile. The dinner party guests were sterile.
And do you know what the ultimate sterile environment is? The place with no risk at all.
A hospital operating room.
Close, but no. A computer. The simulation machine.
The
Matrix.
Yes. The experience machine. This is a famous thought experiment in philosophy, right?
It is. The philosopher Robert Nozick is famous for proposing it. The idea is this. Imagine a machine that can stimulate your brain to give you any experience you desire, and it feels completely real.
So you want to win the Nobel Prize.
Click. You feel the King of Sweden putting the medal around your neck. You hear the applause. You feel the overwhelming pride. You want to climb Mount Everest. Click. You feel the biting cold wind, the thinness of the air, the triumph of reaching the summit.
But the whole time you're actually just floating in a tank of liquid with wires attached to your head.
You are perfectly safe in a lab somewhere. And the question philosophers like to ask is that life valuable? If it feels exactly the same as the real thing, is it the same?
I remember talking about this in college. And honestly, I think a lot of people today, if given the option, would say, sure, plug me in. Real life is hard and often disappointing. The tank sounds pretty nice.
And that is the terrifying part, because it shows how disconnected we're becoming from this core idea. But our author argues that the entire thought experiment is fundamentally nonsense. It misses the point for a very specific, almost mathematical reason.
Okay.
He introduces a concept from probability theory called the absorbing barrier.
All right, we definitely need to unpack that term, absorbing barrier. It sounds like something from physics.
It comes from the study of random walks. But think of it like this. It's a simple analogy. Imagine you are gambling in a casino.
Okay, I'm at the blackjack table. I've got my chips.
The casino, the house, has, for all practical purposes, infinite money compared to you. They can lose $1 million tonight and still be open tomorrow. They can absorb the loss. They have no absorbing barrier when it comes to money.
But I have a limit. I have what's in my wallet.
You have a wallet. If your stack of chips hits 0, you are done. The game is over for you. You are absorbed by failure. You cannot play anymore. That state 0 is the absorbing barrier. It's an irreversible state. You can't just will more chips into existence.
So an absorbing barrier is a point of no return.
Yes. In life, the ultimate absorbing barrier is death. But there are others. Total financial ruin, a reputation so destroyed it can never be recovered, a permanent physical injury. These are states you can't come back from.
And the author's argument is that real life is defined by the very existence of these barriers.
Yes. This is the crucial point that he says the philosophers miss. Evolution, biology, history, progress, they all function because of the absorbing barrier. Species evolve because the unfit individuals hit the barrier, they die, and the fit ones survive to pass on their genes. Markets work because bad companies hit the barrier, they go bankrupt, and good ones thrive.
So without the barrier, there are no real consequences. And without consequences, there's no selection pressure, no reason to improve.
Exactly. Now apply that to the experience machine. Or think about a video game.
I used to play Grand Theft Auto with the cheat codes on. God mode, infinite health, infinite ammo.
And what happened when you played like that?
It was fun for maybe 20 minutes. I blew up some helicopters, caused some chaos. And then it got incredibly, profoundly boring.
Why did it get boring?
Because nothing mattered. It couldn't lose. If I drove a car off a skyscraper, I'd just land and walk away. There were no stakes.
You removed the absorbing barrier. And the moment you removed that barrier, the adventure ceased to be an adventure. It became a procedure, a movie that you were passively watching.
So the author is saying that peril, the constant low-grade risk of hitting that barrier, is not just some annoying bug in the system of life. It's the core feature that makes reality real.
Yes. He has a great line. He writes, "If you do not undertake a bit of real harm, reparable or even potentially irreparable from an adventure, it is not an adventure. It's just tourism."
Wow. This implies that safety total, guaranteed, absolute safety is actually a form of unreality. It's a kind of death in itself.
That is a profound way to put it, and it's exactly his point. If you engineer your life so that you can never truly fail, never go broke, never get your heart broken, never hit a real barrier, you are effectively choosing to live in the simulation. You might not be floating in a tank, but you are living a ghost life.
It's the difference between walking a tightrope 100 feet in the air without a net and walking on a tightrope that's just painted on the gymnasium floor. The physical action is the same, the muscles you use are the same, but one is an act of incredible bravery and focus, and the other is just walking.
And your brain knows the difference. Your soul knows the difference. This connects right back to the ice pick. If David Blaine used a retractable fake ice pick, he is walking on the painted line. By using the real one, he is 100 feet in the air. That's what earned the author's respect.
It really separates the tourists from the adventurers in life. The tourist wants the photograph of the lion, but from the safety of a reinforced Jeep. They want the thrill without the danger.
The adventurer knows the danger is the whole point.
And this brings us to what might be the most provocative and certainly the most controversial application of this entire theory in the text. We've done magic, we've done theology, we've done philosophy. Now we have to talk about how we choose our leaders.
Signaling theory in politics.
Signaling theory.
Yes.
Now, before we get into the specific example the author uses here, I want to be absolutely crystal clear for our audience. We are analyzing the mechanics of why people vote the way they do, not making a judgment on who they should vote for.
Correct. This is about the mechanics of trust, not policy or ideology. This is impartial analysis of the text.
The section in the chapter is titled The Donald, and it refers to the Republican primary. This is before Trump was president. The author describes watching the televised debates.
He watched them in a very specific and I think very telling way. He watched them with the sound off.
Which honestly is a pretty great life hack for watching any political debate. But why did he do that specifically?
Because words can be engineered. Words are cheap. A focus group can polish a sentence. He wanted to see the signals that you can't fake as easily. The nonverbal stuff. The body language, the energy, the presence.
And what did he see when he did that?
He saw a stage full of what he considered very polished politicians. Perfect suits, rehearsed hand gestures, very controlled smiles. They looked like the back office managers from a corporation. They looked safe.
The guys in the corduroy jackets again. The ghosts.
And then he saw Trump. And he noted, very pointedly, that Trump appeared to have visible deficiencies. He wasn't polished. His suit didn't always fit right. He spoke over people, made strange faces. He had, metaphorically speaking, scars.
Now, in traditional political analysis, every single one of those things is a negative. You want the candidate to look presidential. You want the smooth operator who never misspeaks.
Of course. But the author's radical argument is that the voters are not political analysts. They are people with skin in the game. They run small businesses, they drive trucks, they raise families, they fix plumbing, they deal with absorbing barriers every single day of their lives.
So they have a different, more primal detector for authenticity.
Exactly. The author argues that we are all evolutionarily hardwired to trust what are called costly signals.
Okay, explain costly signals. That's a key term.
The classic example is a peacock. A peacock's tail is this huge, heavy, ridiculously colorful appendage. From a purely survivalist perspective, it's a terrible idea. It makes the bird easy for predators to spot, and it's hard to fly with.
So it's a massive liability. It's a handicap.
It is a massive handicap, but that is why it works as a signal to the female peahen. The tail is a costly signal that says, I am so strong, so fast, so fit, and so genetically superior that I can survive and thrive despite carrying around this massive, stupid handicap.
It proves he has skin in the game.
Oh.
I can afford to take this huge risk, and I'm still here.
Precisely. Now, apply that same logic to a leader. A polished candidate, one with no visible flaws, is like a bird with no tail. They're safe, they're aerodynamic, they're efficient, but have they ever been tested? You have no way of knowing.
But a candidate with scars, someone who has failed publicly, someone who's been bankrupt, someone who gets attacked all the time, someone who has obvious flaws, is proving that they survived those things.
Yes. The flaws themselves become the signal. The author writes this incredible line, blemishes, scars, and character flaws increase the distance between a human and a ghost.
That is such a powerful and counterintuitive line. Scars increase the distance between a human and a ghost.
When you see a scar on someone, you know one thing for sure. That person encountered an absorbing barrier and didn't get absorbed. They survived it. They bounced back. That signals resilience in a way that a perfect resume never can.
So the professional political analysts in the media thought the flaws were bugs in the system, but a huge portion of the voters saw those flaws as features.
Because the flaws proved humanity. The polished perfection of the other candidates felt like a simulation. It felt like it was designed by a committee and tested in a focus group. It didn't feel real.
It's the difference between someone using a perfect Zoom background of a library and someone just showing you their actual messy office in the background.
Yes. That's a perfect modern analogy.
Yeah.
We all know that feeling now, don't we? You see the guy with the pristine Golden Gate Bridge behind him, and you know it's fake. It's a performance. You see the guy with the pile of laundry in the corner and a dog barking, and you somehow trust him a little more.
Because he's showing you his reality. He's not hiding.
He is exposing himself to the risk of your judgment. The guy with the Zoom background is hiding. And the author's ultimate warning is that we have built a political and economic class of people who are experts at hiding. He calls them the back office.
Okay, this is the final framework we need to land on. Front office versus back office. This is language from the world of finance.
It is. In a trading firm or an investment bank, the front office people are the traders, the rainmakers, the sharks. They're the ones who take the risk. If they make $1 billion for the firm, they get a huge bonus. If they lose $1 billion, they get fired.
Skin in the game. Maximum skin in the game.
Maximum skin in the game. The back office, on the other hand, is the support staff. It's HR, compliance, the risk analysts who write reports, IT. They are all critically important, but they don't take the direct market risk. They get a salary whether the market goes up or down.
They're insulated from the consequences of the front office's bets.
And that insulation is key. Now, the author introduces this recurring character in his work named Fat Tony.
Fat Tony, he sounds like a character from The Sopranos.
He essentially is. He represents street smarts. He represents the front office of life, the guy who learned by doing, not by reading. And Fat Tony has 2 simple rules for life.
What's rule number 1?
Always do more than you talk.
Action over words. Simple enough.
And rule number 2 is even better. Precede talk with action.
So don't tell me what you're going to do. Go do it, and then maybe tell me you did it if you feel like it.
The hierarchy is absolute and clear. Action without talk is the gold standard. Action followed by talk is acceptable. Talk without action is garbage. It's noise.
And the modern disease, according to the author, is that our world is increasingly being run by back office people who think they are and talk like they are front office people.
Yes, that's the core of the problem he identifies. We have allowed the ghosts, the people with no skin in the game, to dictate the rules for the people who actually take the risk.
Yeah. It's the academic economist with a tenured university position telling the small business owner how to manage payroll, when that economist has never had to sign the front of a paycheck in his life.
It's the politician or the pundit on TV calling for a war that they know their own children will never have to fight in.
It's the art critic who has never painted telling the artist how to paint.
It is the spectator in the stands trying to coach the gladiator in the arena. And the author's entire thesis, the call to action in all of this, is ignore the ghosts. Do not listen to the people who do not bleed their own blood.
It's a profound call to audit your influences. When someone gives you advice or a prediction or a new theology or a political opinion, you have to look for the scar.
You have to ask that one simple question. What do you personally stand to lose if you are wrong?
And if the answer is nothing, you walk away.
You walk away because their reality is not your reality. They are in the simulation. You are in the real world.
This has been, wow, this has been pretty intense. We started with the magician's ice pick, and we've ended up questioning the legitimacy of the entire expert class in modern society.
Well, that's what a good deep dive is for, right? To shake things up.
It is. I want to leave our listeners with a final thought to chew on. We've talked a lot about how safety can turn us into ghosts. We talked about Nozick's experience machine.
The fundamental danger of the painless, risk-free life.
We live in a society that is, for good reason in many cases, obsessed with safety. We have safety features on our cars, safety nets in our economy, trigger warnings on content, sanitized media. We're constantly trying to smooth out all the sharp edges of reality.
We are, in a sense, trying to engineer the absorbing barrier out of our collective existence.
Right. We want the gain without the pain. We want the resurrection without the crucifixion. We want the magic trick without the blood.
But if the author is right, if reality itself requires risk, then what are we actually doing to ourselves with all this safety engineering?
That is the question for you to take with you. By removing every sharp object from our lives, are we accidentally turning our own lives into the simulation? Are we becoming the very ghosts the author warned us about?
It's a haunting thought, isn't it? Maybe the reason so many people today feel numb or disconnected or unreal is because they haven't touched a sharp object, metaphorically or literally, in years. They haven't staked anything important.
They haven't bet the house on anything.
They are playing life with the cheat codes on. And just like in the video game, the game is getting boring.
So the challenge for you, the listener, is this. The next time you are at a dinner party or in a business meeting or even just looking at yourself in the mirror, ask yourself, where are my scars?
And if you look and you can't find any, maybe it's time to pick up the ice pick.
Metaphorically? Please, metaphorically.
Metaphorically, yes, absolutely. Don't go out and actually stab your hand.
But take a risk, a real one. Start the business. Ask the person out. Write the book. Do something where you might actually fail, where you might look stupid, where you might lose something. Because that, according to this text, is the only place you will ever find out that you are actually alive.
Amen to that.
Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.